Cyberwork listeners, I have important news before we dive into today's episode. I want to make sure you all know that we have a lot more than weekly interviews about cybersecurity careers to offer you. You can actually learn cybersecurity for free on our Infosec skills platform. If you go to infosecinstitute.com/free and create an account, you can start learning right now. We have 10 free cybersecurity foundation courses from podcast guest Keytron Evans, 6 cybersecurity leadership courses from also podcast guest Cicero Chimbanda, 11 courses on digital forensics, 11 courses on incident response, 7 courses on security architecture, plus courses on DevSecOps, Python for cybersecurity, JavaScript security, ICS and SCADA security fundamentals, and more. Just go to infosecinstitute.com/free and start learning today. Got it? Then let's begin today's episode. Today on Cyberwork, it's the phrases we've all heard a million times. Security is everyone's job. The human is the weakest link in the security chain. It's not if you get breached, but when. Returning guest Alyssa Miller drills into these comforting nostrums and explains why, even when they're used for well-intentioned purposes, they often act to limit the conversation and the options rather than address the hard work needed to overcome these evergreen problems. You're not going to want to miss this one, folks. It's all that plus a little bit of book talk today on Cyberwork. Welcome to this week's episode of the Cyberwork with Infosec podcast. Each week, we talk with a different industry thought leader about cybersecurity trends, the way those trends affect the work of Infosec professionals, while offering tips for breaking in or moving up the ladder in the cybersecurity industry. My returning guest, Alyssa Miller, is a lifelong hacker, security advocate, and executive leader. She is the Business Information Security Officer, or BISO, for S&P Global Ratings, and has over 15 years experience in security and leadership roles. She is heavily involved in the cybersecurity community as an internationally recognized speaker, author, content creator, and researcher. Alyssa serves on the board of Epiphany Solutions Group, Blue Team Con, and Circle City Con. She is a strong proponent for making the path into security careers easier and improving equity and diversity within the cybersecurity community. So today's episode sprang from a tweet that Alyssa tweeted on May 14th, 2022. And I'm going to read the tweet in full because I just love it. So Alyssa said, phrases that make me want to tear the vocal cords out of hashtag Infosec people. 1, it's not if you get breached, but when. 2, just patch your shit. 3, users are the weakest link. 4, security is everyone's job. 5, quality gate. Everyone is just a lazy abdication of our accountability. If you didn't get a shiver of recognition on hearing at least one of those phrases, are you even really in the cybersecurity field? While some of these phrases might be well-intentioned, as Alyssa said, they are ultimately balms meant to soothe self-inflicted injuries. If we actually want to progress boldly and tackle the very real and systemic problems in the industry head-on, it's worthwhile to interrogate these commonly heard phrases and see if we can come up with some better reframing of the problems and work towards real, more difficult but lasting solutions. Major slant of this episode will be interrogating these phrases and coming up with viable solutions. I mean, we're not going to solve them today, but we're going to try. Alyssa, thanks for joining me today. Welcome back to Cyberwork. It's great to see you again.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. It's great to be back.
All right. So usually to start with, I always recommend that listeners check out past episodes by our return guests. And Alyssa tells us all about her security journey and her years of study and training and what a BISO is and lots more. So since it's been roughly a year, what are some projects you'd like to talk about that you've been working on? I know you have a book coming out soon.
Ooh, yes. So we've been working on the book forever, it feels like. But it actually probably by the time this episode airs should be available. Okay. I will have copies with me at RSA conference, depending on when this airs. That may have already happened.
Or yeah, it might be in the past.
Okay. We'll see. Yep. But so I should actually have physical copies finally shipping. It's been a long road, but cybersecurity career guide. With Manning Publications, I'm thrilled to finally be getting this out there. I think it's all the feedback I've gotten from people who've looked at advanced copies of it, who bought the early access preview to it. The feedback's been phenomenal. I've already had a couple people, quite honestly, and yes, I'm bragging right now, but I don't care. I'm proud of this.
Brag away. Yeah, this is a big deal.
I've had, at least 2 people reach out to me already and say that the book actually helped them land a job, which that to me right there is everything. I mean, the fact that I touched 2 people's lives, that's all I needed to know. Like every ounce of effort I put into us, all the frustrations and anxieties, and like, that's what the book's all about. So I'm hopeful that it's going to connect with more people. I'm hopeful that, I'm talking with some folks at different universities about how we can get the book available to, their students and so forth, just because I think it brings that value in helping people kind of navigate what right now is a really rocky road to try to start that career in cybersecurity.
Oh yeah. I mean, the title Cybersecurity Career kind of speaks for itself, but can you sort of break down like what's going on in the book chapter by chapter?
Yeah, so I'll do it by section. There's 3 main sections to the book. The first section is really just talking about the industry itself and, what actually is cybersecurity and what are the jobs and what's involved and what is the story with this talent gap that we hear so much about.
Yes.
And, so addressing a lot of that, a lot of the research that I did over the last couple of years goes into that. The second step is really about knowing and preparing yourself for that job search. So it's, tangible exercises just to figure out what area of cybersecurity should you be looking at that's, most likely to be a fit for you based on your interests, because that's a question I get a lot. People are like, can you help me get into cybersecurity? I'm like, okay, well, what do you want to do? Well, I want to do it all. Well, I can't do it all. Nobody can do it all. What are you talking about? Like, there are people who've been in this industry who retired from this industry who can't do it all.
Yeah, it's like saying I want to get into music. It's like, could you narrow it down a little bit?
And I'm not, no one expects people to know all, this is the route I'm taking. It's going to be the right path or anything else. But there's some exercises in there just to explore that and then kind of inventory skills. And we talk about, how to really navigate job descriptions because they're notoriously awful. So equipping them a lot of tools. And then the last section, the last 3 chapters is really focused on, all right, you won the job. Now, how do you establish longevity? How do you, position yourself? So attacking things like, I do delve into imposter syndrome and tools for how to deal with that. How to look at negotiating a job, how to look at moving along in your career, planning, having kind of some goals and that sort of thing. So it's really comprehensive. And I think it's probably valuable even to some people who are already working in the industry. But definitely for those trying to either pivot in from another industry or, coming out of school or something like that and want that first job, it's definitely, I think something that's going to prove valuable for a lot of people.
I love everything about that. And so many of those, the things that it's addressing and the fears that it's quelling are things that pop up in our comment section of these videos all the time. So I know people need to really like go find that book like this, go find Cybersecurity Career by Alyssa Miller. Like this is these are the things that are asking, how do I get experience without experience? How do I know what part of cybersecurity am I going to be good at? What if I don't like what I'm doing? And how do I pivot? And how do I, and that's all sort of intangible things in the past that are now hopefully with your book are a very tangible, answer to them.
Awesome. Yeah. And I hope that I know it's going to help people because like I said, I've already got confirmation. Yeah. Awesome. So if anyone's looking for it, by the way, the easiest way to get there is alyssa.link/book.
Oh, nice.
Really, that's simple.
Oh yeah.
I've got a URL redirector out there. It makes it really easy because otherwise, searching for it on Amazon or on Manning's site or anything else. We'll make it easy.
Alyssa.link/book. Is that right?
Yep.
All right. Okay. So we're going to mostly structure this episode around all the points in your tweet that we were talking about before. But I want to ask first, was there a specific moment or a breaking point that brought you to sort of vocalizing this in this way? Or was it something that's just been roiling in your head for a long time?
It's just been stewing. It's a lot of different things. I think I did actually hear someone say one of them in a really just inappropriate environment. And it was just like, that was, kind of the thing. But all of them are things that we hear a lot, right? They're different platitudes and cliches that we throw out pretty recklessly, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And, we don't really consider the weight of the ramifications of the things we're saying and who's hearing it and how that, impacts them.
Yes.
And like I said in the tweet, it's a lot of them are just like, it's a lazy abdication of our responsibility and things like when we say users are the weakest link or, whatever, it really kind of, it's counterproductive.
Yeah. There's statements that are meant to sort of open up a conversation. And then there's statements that are meant to end a conversation. And a lot of these feel like, I don't want to get into this. Users are the weakest link. What are you going to do? And then it seems like it just sort of like narrows like the options that we have if we just say, oh, well, user weakest link. What are you going to do? So that's why I really I was so excited about the idea of interrogating these and seeing what the harder version of that is, instead of saying like, well, we can't do anything about this. We have to sort of stop at that same point. Like, yes, users are a certain sort of pain point in the network or whatever, but how do we do something about that instead of just writing it off?
I mean, take what you just said, right? That a lot of them do come off as kind of conciliatory. We're giving up. Yeah. Well, if there's nothing we can do about it, then why do we exist?
Yeah.
There's no point in having an information security team in your company if that information security team can't fix or address these problems, right? I mean, why are we there?
Right.
And that goes right to that. I mean, to every one of them, but the first one in particular.
Great. Let's start there. So let's start out with it's not if you get breached, but when. This seems to be shorthand for saying that security breaches can happen even when the most advanced security measures are in place, and you can't rely solely on your security posture to keep the criminals out of the gates. But there's a flip side to that coin that, as you put it, becomes an abdication of responsibility on part of the cybersecurity team on duty in the industry as a whole. Can you talk a little bit about this? What would be a better way to think about and reframe this idea?
Right. So, I mean, let's take that apart, right? On the surface, it's 100% accurate. We all know that. We understand that. But imagine going in to, say, an executive leadership meeting or a board meeting where you're about to pitch an idea and you're asking for funding for something, and you start off with the statement, and this is a true story, by the way, of it's not if we get breached, but when. Well, then why are you surprised when they're not going to spend money on your initiative? Hey, it's not if, but when. I can't do anything to stop it, but spend all this money on this tool that's going to help me stop it.
Or maybe not.
And the problem is, so now that's an extreme example. Like I said, a true story, but extreme. But even just by saying that, putting that out in the media, I mean, that exact quote was Robert Miller, the former FBI director, who said that in the public space. So now you have all these executives who are listening to that and saying, oh, well, there's nothing we can do about getting breached. Well, then maybe I just focus my money on cyber insurance, because if I can't stop getting breached, I need to make sure that the financial impacts of a breach are covered. Yeah. And then we wonder why we have trouble getting people to think beyond cyber insurance, and so this is one of those things where, like, yes, the statement is accurate, but stop saying it, because who's hearing it is being impacted in a very different way. And it's actually very counterintuitive and counterproductive to what we're trying to do. So, instead, what I tell people is flip the script completely. Okay. The problem with that statement, it's not if, but when, is that it encourages focusing on the wrong thing. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's focusing us on, we have to be, it's talking about, well, we have to be perfect in our cybersecurity efforts. Well, no. Turn the story to, we're focused on resiliency, right? So if we can say it's not if, but when an attacker might breach our walls, we want to focus on being resilient to that, so that we limit the damage. That, I hear, limit the blast radius, but I really hate military. All the military and analogies and metaphors we use. Yeah. But so that's the thing. Like, just change the conversation, change the narrative completely. We're focused on resiliency. How do we detect and respond to attacks? Don't say react. Respond, right? We're not reacting. We shouldn't be reacting. Unfortunately, we do a lot, but responding to attacks. We know that things will happen. Yes. We put tools in place to detect them. We put tools in place to limit them, and we put tools in place to specifically react or respond to that after, we've had the opportunity to analyze what's going on and do our thing. So, the way I've talked about it previously is you got like 3 types of defenses. And now, hate the military analogies, but here we go with one. Think about a castle.
Yep.
Where they have walls and courtyards, and then more walls and then courtyards. And then they've got the keep where all the important stuff is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's 3 types of defenses there. You've got the detection defenses, which are your lookouts. You've got mitigation defenses, which are aimed at just slowing down the attack, which is that space between those walls.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the active defenses, which are your knights and archers and all the other stuff who have all the weapons.
Yes.
So do the same thing with cybersecurity.
Yeah. No, that makes a whole lot of sense. And, it is one of those sort of subtle things. And it reminds me of like when people say, when we talk about fighting for, civil rights or whatever. And the shutdown version of that is, it's all just rigged. It's all just rigged. Everyone's against us. It's like, because it shuts it down in a very specific way that says, there's nothing we can do about this. Why even try? And especially, like you said, when you have like a C-suite person hearing that, they're like, great, I can put that money elsewhere instead of, but it also sort of speaks to the sort of lack of understanding that sort of higher level people might have about what the security department actually does. It's not just the walls and the archers. It's, it's the sort of crafting of this sort of multi-part security process. So you can say like, it's not if, but when we need to be ready with these certain strategies and stuff like that. Right.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly. It's not about preventing the breaches altogether. Yeah. It's about limiting the risk of them and being able to respond when they do happen.
Yeah. And that was one of the first mind-blowing things when I talked to an incident responder on here was that idea that like, that the getting hacked, getting breached, being in there for a long time isn't even necessarily the thing. That's, that's not the end game. My life is ruined. Everything's done. It's like, all right, take a breath. What do we do next? I think people think of security in that terms. Like, did we get breached this week? No. Okay, then security is working. Did we get breached this week? Yes. Our security plan is complete garbage or something like that, right?
Oh, and there's another one that's not in that list that encourages that. The don't let a good crisis go to waste.
What does that mean exactly? Or what how is that used?
Well, the point of it is when you have a crisis, when you have a breach, everybody's wallets are open. So go get as much money as you can.
Oh, yeah. Which
just reinforces the idea that something was broken in our security infrastructure and that's why we got breached.
Right.
Instead of focusing on, hey, you know what? We had this incident. We responded to it in these ways. We had these tools in place. And as a result, we limited the impact to this.
Gotcha.
And now we learn a couple things we want to invest a little bit more. And by the way, if you showed them the positive impacts of your past investments, they're more willing to give you money for new stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you just ask for money without any sort of like indication, it's like you've fell and skinned your knee and you asked for an ice cream cone or something like that. You're like, how many times can we do this?
Everything that you spent money on now so far failed miserably and we got breached. So give me more money to go spend.
Yeah. And I guarantee it might happen again.
Yeah. Right. So wonder why CISOs get scapegoated after a breach.
Yeah.
Because we don't know how to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. All right. So to move on to that, the second stock phrase in your list is quote, just patch your shit, which I like that. I like that phrasing. This is less about the inside versus outside, defensive versus savvy dichotomy in the last question, and more about vulnerabilities with the assumption that if you're keeping up with updates and patches, you're doing the big work. And conversely, if something goes wrong, it's just because you didn't patch. So, we've had a lot of guests come on and talk about things like vulnerable doesn't necessarily mean exploitable and the importance of vulnerability management and putting your work on parts of network that could actually be compromised. Is this what you're talking about here?
I mean, that's part of it. It's actually, it's multifaceted. That's one part, right? Like it's like, well, if we just patched all ourselves, we'd be safe. No.
Right.
Log4j, thank you. Good night. That story's done. Right. But at the same time, what really frustrates me about it is that it treats those people are responsible for patching. Our operations teams are, SREs, the people who are, down there every day doing patching. It acts like it treats this like it's simple, and those people are just being lazy, or, they're not doing their job well because everything isn't patched to the latest version, which is a complete line of trash. And I'll be blunt, to have that attitude and to pretend like it's just easy to go get the next patch and apply it. Yeah, tell that to your SREs when they do that, and then the database blows up, or some data access layer is incompatible with that new version, and now you spend hours resolving an outage, right? Like the whole idea from security that we can just ignore the concept of the reliability of these things and the stability of the environment in favor of security is so disconnected from the world of business that it really puts us in an awful place. And it makes us look like, this is where we get things like Department of No and all those nicknames and things that people say about us, because we don't consider that big picture. And instead we get so focused on, well, if you just patched your shit, well, then, we wouldn't have been breached. Yeah. Well, okay. If you had just put some mitigating controls in place and whatever, we wouldn't have been breached either. So shut up. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Can you expand on the sort of like mitigating control aspect of this? I don't know. I don't understand these things. So please
take Log4j as a perfect example. So here's something that wasn't even patchable, right? This was a 0-day vulnerability. It's in 90% of Java apps. And, so everybody's got this problem, right? Anybody who's dealing with Java apps has this problem. So it's a package upgrade, which, by the way, those updates aren't necessarily backward compatible. You didn't have an update initially. So what do you do instead? If you get breached by Log4j because you had it in your Java app before they had a fix out for, how can you say to someone, go patch your shit? Did you have WAFs in place? Had you, put in the necessary controls for outbound internet traffic? Because those two right there, the outbound internet traffic, if you weren't allowing that from your servers, immediately shut down the entire attack. That was, the entire RCE with Log4j, if you weren't allowing that outbound traffic, it couldn't go out and load the additional, make the additional calls that it needed to make in order for this exploit to happen. You were done. You were safe. Now you can go patch your stuff when the patches came out. And, if you have a WAF in place, web application firewall, was it perfect? No, but you could limit very quickly. A lot of those vendors had signatures available to limit a lot of the attack strings. So again, did you have that available? Was that in place? There was a lot that security had to do there that is best practice and stuff that we talk about. If you didn't have it there, well, hey, we're as culpable as anyone else. In fact, more so, because there was, again, no patch to be applied.
Yes. Okay. So that's my question. And you sort of answered it there. That is a best practice. Is this something, I don't understand this stuff as well as you do. Obviously, what you just said there as the solution, the mitigating devices, would that be something that most security departments would have known about and just didn't do because XYZ reason?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And I know there's people out there right now who are saying, well, I can't get money for a WAF, or my business won't let me install it, or we can't do network segmentation, or we can't control egress because the business, this, that, the other thing. No, I don't accept those excuses. And here's why. Our job as security people is to communicate the needs for these controls in a way that resonates with the business and motivates them to action. Yeah. That's on us. Okay. Now, that's not to say that if you do that perfectly, you're going to get unlimited budget to do all the things you want to do. No, but we understand, or should understand from the cybersecurity side, how to prioritize those controls that we need. And where a lot of times we fall down is we fail to communicate it in a way. We try to come in with fear. We try to come in with, stories of other breaches and all these other things. If you, make this something where, hey, this is how I'm going to enable your business to make more money. This is how I'm going to enable you to innovate or enter new markets or something like that. Connect your initiatives to that. You get a lot more support. But we're not real great at doing that in cybersecurity.
Yeah, communication, the great soft skill that we all ask for and don't always get. So we come now to the phrase that also specifically raises my hackles, which is users are the weakest link. And I find this annoying for two reasons. One is that, as past guests of the show have said time and time again, thinking of your employees and users of your tech as weak links devalues them as professionals and people, and also makes it harder for them to think of themselves as active participants in the security process. And the flip side, which I think is less press, is the idea that absent the human factor with regards to things like social engineering, insider threat, or bad business practices, we'd all have these impenetrable forces, and cybercrime would somehow shrivel away. So, I'm guessing we can't machine learning our way into a perfectly sealed hermetic universe. So what's a better way to think about humans that, aren't some annoying anomaly, that our perfect machines have to deal with, but are actual benefactors and the reason for all this technology?
Yeah. So there's a lot here, obviously, to unpack too. First of all, the statement itself is like one small step above users are stupid. Yes. Right. I mean, completely. It's one step above the stupid user story, which is awful. So to your first point, it's devaluing the people. Here's a question for you, though. Aren't your information security people also users in your environment?
Exactly. Yeah. And they're the ones that built the tech as well, right?
Right?
Yeah.
And how many of them have perfect track records on your phishing tests?
Yeah.
Probably none. I won't go into my diatribe on phishing tests today, but because that's a whole other ball of wax. But no, I mean, again, the problem with it is it's very dismissive. It's, well, we got these users. They're always going to be the problem. It's the human element. There's nothing we can do. Right, because we do a lot of things that don't address the user issue. Phishing tests are one of them. I mean, I actually have a different tweet thread out there, so I guess I am getting into the phishing thing now, but about how easy it is to bypass or to set up rules in Outlook to identify and self-quarantine anything that's a phishing test. Well, so that's a perfect example of where you're actually encouraging the wrong behavior by your security awareness control in this case. And so, when we say users are the weakest link, we imply this immediate division between our user base and the security team, which is exactly, again, the opposite of what we want.
Yep.
We want that to be the most collaborative, very interactive relationship. So they're learning from us. And here's the kicker. We're learning from them. How are you using the tools we put in your hands? And how you're using those tools impacts the things that we can do to secure them and to make it easier for you to keep yourself secure. What are we doing to make it, all right, could we block all links that are in email? Sure, we could probably set up some kind of filter somewhere to strip out all the links, right? Is that reality, though? How's that going to work? Okay, so how do we do this differently? How can we, let's start with looking at the emails that our own systems send. Do they look like phishing? A lot of times they do. And when you have those kinds of things in the environment, all right, how can we take your ServiceNow notifications, for instance, and change those so that it's clear they're not phishing attempts. And, so that we're not encouraging people, otherwise you're just encouraging them to do the exact things you're trying to tell them not to do.
Yes.
Hey, here's this link. You got to click this link to go to your ServiceNow tickets. The only way you're going to get there. Or here, do this, click this link and it'll send an email to approve this ticket.
Yeah.
Well, okay, unless you've got, but we don't give you anything other than a ticket ID to say any more about how do we do that better? And you see that, you see random Survey Monkey emails come in from HR teams looking for, because they're doing some employee engagement survey or something could we do a little better, please? So that's where it's like, we really need that collaboration because we should be working with those teams to say, let's talk about how we can do this in a way that, it's not going to encourage silly behaviors that we don't want to see, including from within our own ranks.
Can you give me a concrete example in terms of like things that you could learn from the users about the way they use the system, like things that you've seen, like you said, learning's a two-way street. Like what are some things that you've seen from users that they're doing that make you whereas otherwise you might just sort of force them to stop doing that, and you're like, oh, okay, well we can work with that.
Well, I mean, it's understanding workflows, right? So you may have applications within your environment where part of their workflow is they get an email notification says, hey, this task has been assigned to you. Click here to go view it.
Got it.
Well, understand that, okay, if you say, no, don't do that, you now have to go through, click a bookmark in your browser, go log in and do all this. Understand that, that's more secure, but it's also something that's going to encourage them to bypass that control somehow, because that's going to be far more onerous than, hey, I just have to go here, click this link. It takes me right to my ticket. I don't have to do a search or anything else. It's just there. And that speeds up my workflow, right? Okay. Because at the end of the day, so many of like the phishing breaches, I mean, we're kind of really narrow on phishing right now, but it's a great description for users and what users do. It's most of the time that they fall victim to one of these attempts, it's because they're in a rush, or, they're trying to get through the processing through, the 450 new emails they got in the last day. And so it's like, I mean, sometimes you're going to see something you're just not even thinking, or you're just in a certain mindset because of something else you were doing, and that phishing email just happens to pop up at the right time.
Yes.
Another example, and this is actually coming from a tweet too, that same thread with the phishing one was, hey, did you know you can bypass the automatic screensaver that your company forces on you just by running PowerPoint? You open up a PowerPoint presentation and put it in a slideshow, your PC will never lock. And it works on Mac, it works on PC. Wow. With Windows, it's like, okay, so there again, now why would a user do that? Well, they may have other tools that have long-running processes that then fail or react in some poor way when the screen locks.
Right.
So now again, we've encouraged a behavior we don't want, instead of working with them to understand, okay, what is it about this tool? How can we address that differently? Is there maybe a temporary way that they can turn off the screensaver just for that moment? Whatever, some way to handle that. And so there again, perfect case where we can work closer with the users.
I love that. So next, sure, quote, security is everyone's job. I get that in a general sense. If you're leaving the house for the night, lock the door on your way out. But this is one that definitely feels the most like the core of your thesis, that these are abdications of accountability in the cybersecurity industry. So how do we move from security is everyone's job to say something like many hands make for light work, but most of the work still has to be ours?
That's a way to put it. And that's the thing, right? When we see, my problem with that phrase, again, it's not wrong. And that's the thing. Most of these, they're not actually inaccurate, but they're just these platitudes, and the way that they impact is the problem. So you look at this like, okay, security is everyone's job, but look at the actions that occur behind that. We say security is everyone's job. Therefore, let's shift left. Developers need to be responsible for application security. Developers need to be a part of it, but they're not alone in that. We're there with them. But here's the bigger thing, and this is why it frustrates me. The DevSecOps message, or DevOps initially, is all around the idea of shared responsibility. So you go back to 2008 when Andrew Schaefer, Patrick Dubois, they get together and they come up with DevOps. And they didn't even call it that at first. But DevOps, we're gonna get operations and engineers, our developers, all focused on a common set of responsibilities that they're all responsible for. Efficient pipelines, stable code, availability in production, and everything's got to be fast, right? Like remove all the silos, remove all the red tape, let's unite. So 4 years later, security starts to actually really pay attention to this. And over time, the message from security is, well, yeah, that's great. Shared responsibility. Everybody shares responsibility for security. Okay, but we missed the other half of that equation. If we're asking them to be responsible for security, we need to be, as security people, responsible for the efficiency of that pipeline. We need to be responsible, as we were talking earlier, for the availability and stability of that environment when these things hit production, the performance of that production environment. We can't stand there and say, yes, I know this slows you down, but you know what, we need this security control. Or I'm going to put this quality gate that you have to run a code scan every build. By the way, you know, we farm that off to a third party and it takes them 2 days to respond.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that, because now you're breaking the pipeline.
Yep.
And so that's where it's like, yes, security is everybody's responsibility. But if we're going to say that, then you know what? Pipeline efficiency is everybody's responsibility. Production availability and stability is everybody's responsibility, including ours. We can't walk away from that.
Now, of all the phrases that you mentioned in your tweet, and you just mentioned just now, quality gate is the one I'm least familiar with. So I did a bit of online sleuthing, and I feel like I could kind of fake along in a conversation. But for our listeners, could you give me more about the concept of quality gate and where the idea breaks down or doesn't go far enough or focuses on the wrong aspects of things?
So it's actually what I was just describing. I forgot that this one was coming. That was a nice segue.
Oh.
Hey, look at me. Like I've done this before or something. But no, quality gate is that idea that we set this gate in the pipeline. So you think of the different phases of pipeline. You know, you got design, then you're coding, then you're building, you're promoting, you're testing, you're deploying, and then you got post-production support loosely. I mean, people structure those differently and whatever they call them, different things, but you've got these different phases. The idea of a quality gate is that between those phases, we put something that says we're going to ensure the quality by doing some other step. And that step has to pass in order for that gate to open. So the common example from a security perspective is what I was just describing. When you run your build, part of that process, and we automate the crap out of this, right? Because DevOps, everybody's focused on automation, and rightfully so. We automate a SAST scan, a code scan. And we say, well, if you have any highs or criticals, you have to go back and fix those before you can move on from the build process. Well, okay, now that scan runs. How long does the code scan take? Well, if you're sending it to certain providers out there, it takes days. Even if you've got a tool in-house that you're leveraging, it can take hours. Okay, depending on the code base, how much is getting scanned, how you have it configured, all that happy stuff. So now that threatens to break the pipeline, because the pipeline should flow in one direction. It's a pipeline. Does the water in your house suddenly start flowing the other direction? That would be bad. That's not how pipelines work. Same thing with things like, gasoline pipelines. Okay. Pipelines go one direction. Quality gate threatens to undo all of that and send you all the way back. And so where it's especially problematic is when those feedback loops are long, like I said, or when they're inaccurate. And we think about things like code scans, for instance, those things are fraught with false positives, or they find a vulnerability that, as to your point early in the show, it's vulnerable, but it's not exploitable because, there's no way to actually get to that code. And so now you have that situation where, okay, the engineers got to look at it. They got to figure out, is it actually vulnerable? How am I going to fix it? Everything else. Whereas if we focus on pipeline efficiency, focus on, that idea of CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment, where we can get that pipeline sped up to the point that we're doing multiple deploys per day. So now and this is the thing that scares the living shit out of security people. Deploy that stuff with the vulnerabilities in it. Deploy it. Don't stop them. Let them deploy it. If your pipeline is efficient that you can fix it in a day or less, or whatever the acceptable time frame is for you from a risk perspective, think about that. You identify the vulnerabilities, still run that scan, at build time, but don't stop them. Any of those higher criticals now go back into their backlog as P1, their top, like P0, whatever you call it, whatever that thing is that this is in the very next development cycle, no matter what. Put it in there like that. Let them fix it then. And now it comes through and the development pipeline still moves in one direction, right? Because you've just created new backlog items. And now, if you focused on making your security tools help the efficiency of that pipeline and you're getting really good at CI/CD, well, now you know you're going to fix it in a matter of hours or days anyway. How much risk is there from letting that vulnerability go through? Better yet, what if you've also got other mitigations in your production environment? Like you've identified this thing, so you know you can pass that on to the SREs and say, all right, for this app, we've got to be aware of this type of, attack against this. So maybe as a part of that, now you deploy it's a web application firewall rule or a regular firewall rule or whatever you got to do. There are ways to put those mitigations in place to further reduce the risk.
Yeah.
But the point is, you haven't stopped the pipeline from flowing.
Yes.
And that's what's crucial here.
Got it. Yeah. Well, I live in Chicago where we reversed a river to make the poop go away. So I'm not opposed to it.
A little
different. But
Chicago does a lot of weird things.
Oh, yeah. Oh, tell me about it.
I mean, I got 3 words for you. Upper Whacker Drive. Chicago does weird things.
You apologize to Whacker Drive. It's a national treasure.
Love you all in Chicago. You're down to myself. I love you all. But oh my God, come on.
No, I know. Okay, so that, yes, and again, like you said, with the sort of automation love that security departments have, like I imagine a lot of these sort of mitigations that you could put in could also be automated, right? Like if you said we know there's a vulnerability coming, put these gates up until the next micro deployment comes or whatever, and then
exactly.
Gravy, yeah.
A lot of the vulnerabilities you're getting out of these tools are pretty standardized, right? I mean, they might show up in different places, but you can say, all right, we now know that this, going back to the old days, this parameter is vulnerable to SQL injection or something like that. So, that easily can translate in an automated fashion to, we're going to deploy a WAF rule that's watching this specific field for anything that would come through. Now, I mean, it should be doing that anyway. I mean, it's probably not the best example, but we're going to watch for signatures of SQL injection on this field. Okay, so now you've got something there, right? Yes. I mean, and now you're limiting that whole concept of break the build, which is everything I just described. Of hey, your results are not acceptable. We're breaking your build and sending you back.
Yeah.
All right, let's get better at that.
Amazing.
And so it's just, and this is where we get into one of those cliched terms, I'll say, that CISOs are using. Well, it's about business enablement. Well, if you can speed up that pipeline, you now in security are part of business enablement. Reducing risk is in business enablement.
Yeah.
Making us faster, more efficient, more innovative, making more money. That's business enablement.
I love that. No, that also, all of these are great inversions, but that one especially feels like it could change the whole industry. So I hope people are listening. I think that's amazing. Yeah.
We'll get there. I hope so. I mean, this is a message. I've done a bazillion DevOps talks and DevSecOps talks on this.
What is the feedback? I mean, are people sort of resistant to this idea?
Yes.
Or okay.
Very much so. Look at the thread that we've been quoting this from. The number of people who came at me hard about it, like they blasted me. Or the other thread I mentioned with this, I literally told people, here's how you identify phishing tests. Here's how you can, never have to deal with them again. Here's how you bypass your screensaver. And I had security people I'm surprised I wasn't getting death threats with as virulent as some of these people were. They were angry. I'm like, stop and think about it. If I'm saying that, do you think that there aren't non-security people doing the exact same thing?
Yes. Yeah. Right.
That was a challenge to all of us, me included, in the security space, to get better and analyze how the things that we do that are well-intentioned may actually be counterproductive in creating behaviors, encouraging behaviors that we don't want. And that's the problem.
Yeah. Now, I feel like we could do an entire second episode on some of the corresponding stock terms we hear when discussing cybersecurity career advice and job hunting tips in cybersecurity. So you have phrases like, if we can see your enthusiasm, we don't care if you have a degree. And it sounds great, but we aren't playing out in the real world, as evidenced by all the folks in the comments saying they have real experience and a pile of certs and don't get calls back on any job posting. So if the issues of the phrases in your tweet is abdication of accountability, the stock phrases in the employment side, I think, have a sort of a bright siding quality. We're rolling out the red carpet and we just don't know why no one's walked through the door yet. So what are some antidotes to phrases like, if you show enthusiasm, we'll teach you the tools, and how do we move to a system where that's actually true?
If I hear someone say that, the first thing I do is I look at their job description.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's got a laundry list of tools, I say, you're already doing it wrong. You're not living what you're saying. And that's what we see, right? Mm-hmm. I told you I did the research for the book. One of the most common things, one of the questions I asked was, what is one thing you would say to somebody looking to get into the industry? And there's one word that showed up more often than anything else: passion. Show your passion, have mm-hmm. passion.
Yep.
People are not hiring on passion, no matter how much they claim they are.
Yeah.
Because we're putting out these massive job descriptions that, list these laundry lists of different, technologies and things that you have to know. Well, if we're saying, I just want to see your passion, I can teach you the technology, then why are those requirements there?
Yeah.
Maybe list a few as like nice to haves, mm-hmm. People call it different things, but you kind of got like the requirements, and then you got the kind of, this will be even better for this
Wouldn't
job.
hurt. Yeah.
Put it in there. Mm-hmm. And that, by the way, is also where certs should land. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, you see these things are hyper-focused. If I'm going to break this down, and this is the topic of a talk I've proposed to a conference, I'm hoping to give it.
Okay.
We spend a lot of time in our job descriptions telling people why they should not apply to our job, right? Mm-hmm. We put those lists in there.
Yeah.
Here's all the things. If you don't have this, we're less interested in you. That's the way, again, unintended consequences of what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Instead, craft your job descriptions so that they encourage people to apply. Give them reasons to want to apply to that job. And then, if you don't trust me that this works, I've got a job posting out there right now I'm in the process of hiring for. This was my strategy, was I wanted to make the job description as inviting as possible to encourage people to apply. In less than a week, I had 80 qualified candidates for this job. Mm-hmm. So don't tell me you can't find cybersecurity people. Like, they are out there. And I'm not even talking about an entry level jobs. If I open those up, I get massive numbers, right? Yeah. I'm talking about a highly skilled position because it's a leadership position. So I needed somebody with, some of that. Unfortunately, in this case, wasn't able to hire an entry level person. Mm-hmm. 80 in less than a week.
Wow.
I mean, that tells you something, mm-hmm. because they see a job description that says, hey, that you want to come work here. You may not feel like you have all the skills, but here's why you would fit in this job. Mm-hmm. Put that stuff in there. Tell them why those things that maybe they're not thinking about make them qualified, rather than telling them, well, you need to have 5 years of experience working and writing queries in Splunk. So if you haven't done that,
we don't want to talk to you.
It doesn't get us anywhere.
Can you walk through some of the ways that you wrote that description that sort of inverted that?
So one of the big ones, and I learned this from a previous description where I talked to the people I hired after the fact, is just pay attention to your job title. A lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us, especially if we're not in the government, DOD government stuff, mm-hmm. that's all very different. So
sure.
They're a little stricter on this, but a lot of us have the ability to put a different business title than the HR title. I hired 2 people who are both associate directors, but I listed the job as a lead of application security. Why? Because the minute you put associate director and they see the word director, there's a lot of people who immediately run away from that because, I'm not qualified for that.
Right.
Now, I described the role, exactly as it was. And the other thing I did was I focused on what are the transferable skills that they might have from a different job maybe not even tech related, that would fit. And in the narrative of the job, what it was going to do, that big paragraph or 2 or 3 at the top.
Yes.
I described that. Do you have this? Do you work well? Do you do these things? If so, I want you, kind of thing. Right.
Cool. Yeah.
That's the sort of thing that says, okay, that connects with them. Like, oh, hey, I don't necessarily have all these weird technical things, but they're saying they want someone who's done this. I did that when I was, my favorite metaphor is when I was a barista at Starbucks.
Yes. Right.
Right. Like, there's some really cool stuff that baristas at coffee shops have to do that really have applicability to cybersecurity.
Translates really well. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I built a whole TEDx talk on it. So,
okay.
Hopefully there's something valid there.
All right, everybody, go. That's your next assignment. Go check out the TED Talk from Alyssa Miller here. That's awesome. Thank you for that, for breaking that down. So, this episode will likely, we were talking about, we didn't know when it was going to drop. It'll probably drop in June, so it'll probably drop during Pride Month. So the phrase "we are committed to diversity and inclusion," as often said on corporate websites, and sometimes only in June, could stand to be picked apart. What does an industry truly passionate about diversity and inclusion look like, and how do we move towards that with actual momentum instead of playing catch up from the 11 months where we weren't thinking about it?
Oh my God, we could do a whole other show on this.
Sure.
You want to know if a company actually believes in that, start with their leadership page. I've just been through this in the last couple of weeks because I've been having a lot of meetings with a lot of vendors. Mm-hmm. And before going into every one of those meetings, the very first thing I did was look at their leadership page. And I will tell you, with multiples where they had a very monochromatic leadership team, that was something I brought up in the discussion. And I wish more people would do that because, and here's what I tell them: if you cannot see the value that a diverse leadership team has in terms of business value, why that makes your company stronger, more profitable, everything else, then I don't trust you as a business. Because there is real business value. We don't do diversity just because it's nice or it's right. Those are very good reasons. But we do it because there is business value there. It actually makes our business stronger. It's demonstrated over and over again in studies. And the attempted counter I hear to this a lot is, well, we need diversity of thought. Okay, but you don't get diversity of thought if you're not getting the diversity of experiences that come from different races, different genders, different sexual orientations, all of those
neurodivergencies, and
people who are neurodiverse, all of it, all of those different aspects we can think of that play into that. Okay, if you're not bringing those people into the mix, you can't say you have diversity of thought. 5 old white men in a room are not giving you diversity of thought. I don't care how much their experiences in life vary. They've not been through the same things. As
also diversity of thought. I think that even goes higher on the list than security is everyone's business as a shut conversation down phrase.
Oh, it totally is. It's a total attempt to shut down the argument.
All I hear is stop talking about this, please.
So.
Yep. All right. So as we wrap up today, we talked a bit about the book up front. If you want to talk about any other projects that you have on the horizon that you'd like us to know about, or other cool things you're doing, or whatever, tell us about it now.
Honestly, I don't know that I have anything in particular at the moment. Okay. I'm doing some cool stuff with, we're building out a security champions program. I'm really hoping that that's going to turn into something very cool here soon. Okay. This is going to air after RSA. I'm giving a talk at RSA, but I'm really hoping that the team I've assembled to work on the security champions program, we're going to come up with something really awesome. I'm already seeing some really, really creative and cool work. So I do hope in the longer term that I can even turn that into maybe some commentary on best practices and things. Because I did ask them to make a little bit of a departure from what we traditionally think of as security champions, where a lot of times it's all about like training and stuff. And we're definitely looking a lot broader than that. And I know there's some organizations out there that have great security champions programs. So,
So what, could you sort of expand on that a little bit without giving all the...
Basically we're talking about embedding cybersecurity expertise in like your engineering teams, your product teams, your operations and SRE teams, et cetera, and developing that as its own community of people where they interact and they operate as a community of security champions. And then they go back, they're still developers. They're not cybersecurity people. They're still developers. They're still engineers. They're still working with those teams in that job capacity. But now they have that increased awareness and skill set around cybersecurity. So that knowledge is now in the team. And that starts to build a true culture of what a colleague of mine calls a security empowered culture. So thank you, Jules Okafor, for that, because I love that term. And I told her I was going to steal it from her. So,
and now here we are.
Use it with credit.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a great term and I love it.
That's awesome. So one last question. You gave that link out before for the book. If our listeners want to learn more about Alyssa Miller, where should they go online?
Well, Twitter is easy. If you really want to learn about me, because I am for some reason really wide open about my life on Twitter. My website, I would love to say go to my website, and you should, but I'm not great with keeping it up. I'm not going to lie. I blog every so often. But that is alyssasec.com. So ALYSSASEC.com.
Okay. And the book link again was it alyssa.link or alyssamiller.link/book?
Just alyssa.link, ALYSSA.link/book. It will take you to Manning's site where if you do it, the book's going to be out now by the time this comes out, but as of today, if you go and you can start reading it before the book's available, ebook and physical book are, as of this actually airing, going to be available. So definitely encourage people to take a look, and also let me know what you think. If there's things I missed or things you wish I would have included that I didn't, it wouldn't shock me if at some point down the road we do a second edition and update it with some of that stuff. So.
Well, cool. Yeah, maybe I'll have you back on and I'll do a book report on what I learned from it. So if you want to be on a third time, but Alyssa, thank you so much for your time and insights. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, same here. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the time today, Chris.
And as always, I'd like to thank everyone who is listening to and supporting Cyberwork. We've just about doubled our subscriptions in the last 6 months, and we really appreciate all the people who are very excited to talk to us about this stuff. So new episodes of the Cyberwork podcast, as always, are available every Monday at 1 p.m. Central, both on video at our YouTube page and on audio wherever you get your podcasts. And as always, if you want to learn cybersecurity for free, we have a platform on our Infosec skills where you can go, infosecinstitute.com/free. You can get 10 free cybersecurity foundation courses from Keytron Evans, 6 cybersecurity leadership courses from Cicero Chimbanda, 11 courses on digital forensics, 11 on incident response, 7 on security architecture, plus DevSecOps, Python for cybersecurity, JavaScript security, ICS and SCADA security fundamentals, and more. Just go to infosecinstitute.com/free and start learning today. Thank you once again to Alyssa Miller, and thank you all so much for watching and listening. We'll speak to you next week.